welcome to Startup Kitchen Talk, where we talk about startup apprentices becoming master chefs. My today's guest is very powerful and stylish, and that's why I'm wearing banana in her honor. And also, speaking of banana, she's quite rare. Imagine banana tree in the Arctic, unexpected origins and lot of resilience. Please welcome Yassaman Omidbakhsh, the co-founder of Eyrim, the most successful eye optic e-shop in the region.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you for having me.
That was a rough start. You once told me when we had our first call, you told me that you dress and you take a style based on your mood. So what's your mood today?
Well, I can definitely not match your banana mood.
So sorry, I haven't told you before.
But yeah, comfortable and excited and happy. So that's why this green phosphorus color. So I tend to, I mean, it's not such a big thing, but it does impact my mood depending on the occasion. That, I wake up and I feel certain ways and I change my wardrobe to feel more comfortable in that day depending on my mood. So and I think, as women, we have a great opportunity that we can play around with fashion and impact our mood, which is quite interesting for me. So, yeah.
Well, and in a lot of your photo shoots, you're wearing black. Does it
Yeah.
mean that you think it's stylish, or does it mean that you are slightly nervous and stressed, and you want to express something with the blackness of the wardrobe?
It's actually the Eyrim color.
Oh,
Yeah, it's coming from the origins of Eyrim because after the second rebranding of Eyrim, the first logo was blue. Not that we wore blue, but the first logo was blue. But then we did the major rebrand and everything was kind of black. And, the idea was that we want to be this minimal, just black and white, and with other elements bring some something intriguing or more colorful to point the attention towards that. And I guess it just kind of went with us as well. Every photo shoot that we had with the team was wear either completely black or completely white, so that usually your faces stand out and the logo, but not the attention to different colors on the on what you're wearing. So I guess it just kind of stuck with us. That's it. For photo shoots, we're wearing black.
And for the rebrand, I think that was last year, right?
This was the third rebrand, actually.
That was the third rebrand.
Yeah.
Was that like because you want to go with the minimalist flow, or was it because you wanted to spread the target groups to be maybe less youthful, more serious professional? What was the reason behind that?
Yeah, you could say that because we always had this we have these three pillars in Eyerim that we're building the company. It's targeted also towards inwards internally with the team and also externally to the customers, which is professionalism, care, and transparency. And I think we stuck with this professionalism attitude that everything is just sleek, minimal, not really playing with colors and so on. But as time grew and Eyrim also launched into different verticals, so-called being the optician business, we realized we need actually to rebrand it and we need a different messaging, different theme. So the current Eyrim that you see is born, which is actually, on the contrary, quite colorful. And it took us a while to digest it. And when we were presented with the new logo and the new color scheme, we were all like, oh, what is this? Like, are we going to really do this? And once we had it, everyone actually was really falling in love. Like, this is really the right way to go. And it's very, very colorful, actually.
And is there something like that you would recommend that you don't need to fall in love? We can maybe generalize that if we did, even with some business idea, that you don't need to fall in love with the idea, with the new brand, with the design right away, and it can let it to grow on you.
Yeah, of course. That's what happened with the new identity. And I think what really was the precursor of that was our team mostly was spearheading this and making the moves around it and kind of the decisions. And we were just suddenly offered that, okay, this is what we think. And the reception with everyone in the team was really, really good. So we also honored like all the effort and the work that they put into it. And it turns out it was actually a really, really good move. And it also goes coincidentally hand in hand with what Eyrim is trying to manifest itself as a brand, because Talking specifically about the eyewear and optical industry, it's a really age-old traditional industry. You walk into the optical stores these days, usually still majority of them, it's you feel you're walking into a clinic or something really traditional. There is not much life, not much color going on. And thanks to this rebranding as well, because we've always been this kind of a brand that when you go to Eyrim website or now you go to our stores, there is loud music playing. There's always crowded. It's busy. You're interacting with different brands, different colors, and it's a different experience than walking into like a traditional optician store. So I think with this new, colorful and this new identity, it coincidentally really goes hand in hand with what we're actually trying to change and transform also in the industry, at least on the surface of things.
And talking about colorful, rich, and entertaining, you lived in Iran and Malaysia, in Slovakia. Now we spent a lot of time in Czech Republic. Who has the best cuisine?
Ooh, well, I cannot go away from my roots in that regard, so I am gonna have to go with Iran.
And who has the best cuisine for startups?
Well, startup kitchen, of course.
But I mean, country-wise.
For startups, I think I would go with the Czech Republic now. I haven't been to Malaysia for a very, very long time, although I'm hearing it's becoming again like one of the best, nomad and expat capitals or hubs of the world. So hard to say, but comparing between Czech and Slovakia, I think things are just more accessible here for busy people.
And what is the biggest difference? What is the thing that you think here makes it easier for the startups than Slovakia?
Well, definitely the fundamentals, the politics and the government, I would say. We can also see easily on the stats how there is a huge influx of startups and businesses and companies. My personal friends, majority of them, just coming more and more and making the move towards Czech Republic. So I think that's definitely one big reason, one big incentive that this country is offering. But also something that I tend to also talk about, that it's quite a pity in Slovakia that it has a really great geographical location. It has really resilient people that they're hungry to create and build things, but they're not really advertising themselves as such. Whereas I see in Czech Republic, actually, they're doing better marketing in that sense. And you can immediately also see the results here as well, that there is a lot of startups coming to fruition.
This is so nice to hear, because so many times when we talk to startup founders or in Czech-based investors or CEE-based, we tend to hear what's wrong with the industry, everything, it's so, and the paperwork and everything and the mindset and the education, and yet you sit here say how welcoming it is very nice to hear. Do you sometimes think, and even based on the origins that we're gonna talk in a few minutes, but do you sometimes think that maybe the Czechs and Czechoslovaks, that they tend to complain a lot in in comparison of what you see as possible?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very quick yes for me.
So let's move a few decades ago, when you were growing up in Iran. Was that something that the term businesswoman, was that something that you dreamt of, or was that too far-fetched for you at that point?
It was obviously, I wasn't even in that, area or realm or that mindset at all. I honestly believed as a kid, growing up in Iran, if you want to have be your own boss or reach that certain level, you just need to climb the corporate ladder, and maybe by your 50s or 60s, you're like a CEO of a nice company and you're well off. So I never imagined in my wildest dreams that this is actually what's happening and what's possible.
And climbing the ladder of the corporate, was that something that you ever dreamt of or thought of?
No, never.
So what was the dream for you back then?
I actually wanted to be a movie director for some reason, but I guess because I have this inclination always to create something, to bring something to life. So I feel that's why I was a lot also into the arts and that sort of that segment in life. I was very interested. I was active in that. I was directing some theaters for school. I was
Mm-hmm.
painting a lot, but honestly, I didn't pick my career. I just went with the flow. The only thing that mattered to me at that moment was I just wanted to get out of the country.
Oh, and that was at what age?
Well, since I was very young, I knew that I want to get out, and immediately when I turned 18, I
And
escaped.
was your family? Because I can imagine if I told my mom at 18, I'm just moving away, not coming back home. Was your family supportive at your decision to go abroad and change your home?
Well, they were certainly surprised because
Hmm.
I was grooming them with this idea for many years, but they never took me seriously. Until one day I just went with the papers to them, like, I got accepted, I need to go in a month. And they were very surprised. And both of them, I was so lucky that I had this environment in the family, and both of them were very aware of the situation in the country, and knowingly that the future, if you want to build a good future for yourself, you probably need to get out.
Hmm.
So yes, they were at the end quite supportive, and they just saw it as the one and only option. If you really want to make something out of yourself as a woman, especially, you probably should leave the country.
And were they, because you said how you were a creative child directing the place and everything. By the way, there are optics in the movie business, so maybe you can get back to that one day. But was your family supportive on of the creativity side as well? Were there
Yeah.
a lot of books, movies,
Yeah.
etc.?
Yeah, very, very, very. I was so lucky to have been brought in this environment in that country, that nothing of my parents' ideology or thought processes was kind of being pushed on us as kids, and we were always raised to think for ourselves and find the answers ourselves. They, of course, gave us guidance and direction, but they always also provided so much resources and room for us to be curious. So I remember as early as I was 3, 4 years old, my mother was I told her, I don't like to go to kindergarten. Can I go to English school? Which,
Yeah, that is a very very kindergarten normal kids, or very standard kids say, I don't want to go to in kindergarten, I want to stay home and watch Pokemon.
yeah.
So you said, I don't want to go to kindergarten, I want to go to English
Yeah.
school.
I mean, she asked, "Well, what do you want to do? These are your options."
Mhm.
So I was like, "Yeah, okay, let's go for the English school. At least I learned something useful, than just playing with kids in a kindergarten."
Yeah,
Uh,
that's too much for the kids playing with kindergarten. And tell me, you said that one of your favorite books growing up was, I don't know which one, which book by George Orwell?
yeah, 84,
Right.
1984,
1984.
certainly,
It's
certainly.
always 1984, or, Animal Farm.
Yeah.
So both excellent choices.
Yes, yes,
Why
indeed.
that?
Yeah, I think it certainly does have something to do with the country I grew up in, Iran, because it really, taps into that dystopian future, and, these totalitarian regimes and
Hmm.
how much impact they can have on your freedom. So as a teenager, I was really interested in also reading a lot of English books. And these types of books are definitely banned in Iran to this date still, so it was
Hmm.
difficult to get your hands on them. So all the more I was curious what's going on. I need to read one. And ironically, I found the PDF version online for free, and I tasked my father, who was working in a government building with government
Hmm.
facilities, to print the book that's banned by the government and bring it home.
Wasn't it dangerous for him?
No, I mean, even if we never thought about it, we just, yeah, just print a couple of books for me, please, and they're
From the
banned.
governmental building.
Yeah. And immediately I was hooked, and it was, I found these dystopian types of books and storylines very kind of romantic, in a sense that there is still hope.
Well, there's not a lot of hope in 1984, to be honest.
Yeah, and the ending is not the best when I think of it as well, but it was a good alarm, like that your
Hmm.
freedom is really important, and it's the only thing that you have that really can shape your life and
Mhm.
eventually the world. So make sure that you always will have that. And that was really hacked and embedded in my mind to this date, and to the way that we also run Eyrim together with
Mhm.
Martin. And I would say one of the main reasons that when I met Martin, we really kind
Mhm.
of bonded and we had such a strong friendship, because these types of ideas and this type of thinking is very integral and important to us. The way that we are as people, the way that we treat people, and the way that we run our business. So I would say that I was probably, both of us were very lucky that we found each other with such, strong morale and ethical
And
pillar.
libertarian views.
Yeah, that.
And I want to ask, in your teenager views, with your creativity, with you wanting understanding George Orwell, were there any part of your teenager years when you were in any danger? Because you read the books that were forbidden, you were curious about stuff that you weren't supposed to know. Was there any a line that you think, okay, this is too much, this I cannot cross?
No, I was usually grasping and kind of uh, taking in all this knowledge on my own, in solitude, without really, spreading it or informing
Hmm.
like the world that this is what I think, even though I was a openly atheist within my,
Hmm.
community and my family and friends. But I would never mention it anywhere, like in any government, or anywhere outside, because also protests were quite common, and I
Hmm.
remember my friends and quite a lot of young teenagers were participating in them. And I was against it personally, because I thought if you can maybe change the world and your life, or in a small bits even, and you feel that that's the power that you
Hmm.
can have. Life is so precious that you try to waste it, in a blink of a second. You go to a protest and maybe you get shot, so you will lose all that other
Hmm.
chance that you can maybe make your voice being heard in the future in a much more stronger way than participating in the protest at the time. Although I appreciate and admire people who do that still, it's extremely brave.
That is
I'm
extremely
not
brave.
courageous, I would also say, but I also thought that I rather use my voice in the future in a different way, that it can be heard better.
It definitely can be heard, definitely in this podcast. Um, you said that in Malaysia you met Martin, your current co-founder. You guys hit it off based on your opinions, based on your views. It was really integral, important to be implemented in your business. You guys decided you want to create something together. What was optics and eyewear, clear sight? Was that a laugh at first sight?
No, unfortunately, we cannot claim that, even though it would be a good, hook. It was I love
It
at
took me
first
like
sight.
5 minutes to
Yeah.
create this.
But still, but no, we actually hit it off in a sense that we both wanted to just create something, and we explored different ideas at the time in Malaysia, and none of them really were so tangible to us, and it was quite difficult until one of our really really good friends to this day, our advisor as well, there kind of opened our eyes and said, guys, you're in the same business here in Malaysia,
Hmm.
the ropes and the hangs of things, how everything works. Why don't you just maybe replicate this business where you came from in Europe as well? And yeah, that's we listened to him, with good advice. So, and we kind of were waiting, because our bosses there were waiting to either launch Mexico or Central Europe, and we were wondering which side they would go. They actually went bankrupt, so nowhere. But we came to Europe and we launched Eyrim.
Why did they went bankrupt and you went to skyrocket black numbers in few years? What is the
Yeah,
difference?
I mean, it's a very difficult business. So I think where we were in Malaysia, it was not just this one particular business. So we were part of this kind of like a accelerator where they had several startups that they were pushing at the same
Hmm.
time, and they were not really persevering on one idea that this must
Hmm.
work. They were trying several other ones, and if something really required much more effort and much more funding, they wouldn't really push it that much further. So I think that's what we took here in Slovakia. And I honestly didn't even have this mindset of let's really keep trying, let's push for things. If it doesn't work in the first years, I honestly would just be like, okay guys, it's not worth it, let's try something else. But I think this is something also Slovakians and the Slovak culture kind of brought in
Mm-hmm.
and taught me. And seeing it firsthand, our team, they practice this daily on many tasks, even that it's, you just need to keep on fighting and it's worth it. And I am so blessed and I'm so happy that we did that, because the success was really on the horizon and we couldn't see it. And if we gave up at the
Mm-hmm.
moment, we would not ever be here celebrating the achievements that we had. So I'm happy that we persevered and we kept on fighting.
Giving up is probably the easy way out. Always. What do you think? Because you guys hit it off, you understood each other, you thought, well, this person with, same approach and same ideas would be a best co-founder. But you were friends first, which is that something you would recommend to founding a person with similar word views and your friend, because it can go both ways,
Yeah.
right? It can go, okay, we're gonna create something amazing together. It can also go, well, friends fight,
Yeah.
and sometimes that ends similar to 1984 book. So no spoilers, sorry. Would, from your point of view, was that a good idea?
Is very, subjective. I mean, it's, again, as I said, I think we, it was such a coincidence and we were so lucky that,
Mm-hmm.
the two of us met and we hit it off on such important, moral or human values that's was kind of overarching everything else in life for us, that we were always like clinging to those values and nothing else could kind of come in between. Of course we had our fallouts, we had our fights, we had our difficulties, but at the end, that moral ground that we always kind of clinged to in
Mm-hmm.
life was the higher good that we looked up to and respected, and thanks to that we always managed to find a solution. But if you ask me if I recommend it, I certainly believe, if you're starting something with yeah, I mean, in any case, if you're starting something with someone, it definitely makes sense to have this check that,
Mm-hmm.
do we at least get along on basic values in life?
Can we fight and get over it?
Yeah.
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 You both had it as a side hustle first because you both had, full-time jobs.
Hmm.
How long is this manageable to, go to work every day to make money and to take that money to pay developers and the team to create the project that your heart is in? How long can you keep this up?
I mean, depends on your personality, as long as that you can keep it going. But the trouble for us was that we needed much more funding to
Mm-hmm.
put into the project, and just simply having those jobs at that time with our experience was not paying it off. I can imagine if we had actually really good, like high paying jobs, or we had more savings, we could have lingered around much more longer just to make sure that this is safe. And if I do something these days, I probably would do the same. But back then it was not enough, and
Yeah.
we just, it didn't make sense, for such an amount to just stick around for a long time. Rather, let's put 100% of our time and effort into the business. And we started also fundraising, which is something that none of my co-founders really believed that it would be possible at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, surprised we actually pulled it off without even having the website launched.
But you already, I remember you telling me that you were already signing contracts and you didn't even have a
Yeah.
website on. Wasn't that like impossible juggle?
It was, yeah. And the worst part was we already had before that signed a contract with a development agency and signed
Hmm.
in 20K for the website development. So we already, put ourselves deep in the debts that this all is happening. And it was, yeah, lucky that we managed to pull off the fundraising, and kind of everything from there was just, catapulted upwards and the business was growing. And that was a big learning for us, because from there we thought, okay, this is how you just do the things, going forward. Just, imagine huge growth, being really ambitious, and without really having secured the finances or knowing actually how much it would cost, this plan of yours. We were just going more and more into debt, and sometimes if things doesn't work out as planned as well, and your business is not growing as much and you're declining, and you're not fundraising on time as well, then
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the learnings in a bit, because I really appreciate how open you and Martin are about talking about mistakes that other people can learn from. But I just wanna get back to that point. Like, what was the point when you were juggling two jobs, signing contracts on a website that didn't exist, etc.? What was the click point? When you said, okay, let's go 100% in. Was it more like necessity that you really kind of had to when you had those signed
yeah.
contracts, or was that like your field, this can really work? Was that the famous movie iPhone moments?
I think it was just a regular flow of life, because when
Mm-hmm.
we started Eyrim with Martin, we were still in Malaysia, and our visas were also running out. So we had to, certainly, we didn't want to prolong the visa, prolong the contract. We just wanted to come back to Europe and continue building it from there with our two other co-founders. So I think we just followed, the consequences that we were faced with in life as well at the moment. And things ended. I went back to Iran waiting for my visa. Martin went back to Europe, helping with the team on the ground to build the business. And yeah, they were also doing a couple of side jobs in Vienna to at least pay for something for the company and for the bills. And it was just a necessity to still keep on having this side job until the fundraising would go through.
And was that a big jump from Malaysia, Iran, and then to Slovakia? Because I think that you haven't been there before, right? It was
Yeah.
your first trip to Slovakia. Was there something surprising? Maybe the cuisine?
The cuisine, not really.
How did you find halushki for the first time?
I liked it. It was
Oh,
nice, but
lovely.
I preferred pirohi.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, yeah,
Me too.
I prefer pirohi. It was much nicer. um, Difficult to say. I mean, I came that those times were so traumatic for me, because we were also living in Vienna in the beginnings, like four of us in a tiny flat, which was meant to be for one person. And suddenly, from having like quite a good life in Asia, having your own flat, having quite the luxury that you could also travel and nice weather, beaches and so on, you come to a life in Europe with everything is much more expensive. Life is more serious, and you got to take things serious. And it was such a downgrade that we had good positions and a job, and we were quite well off in Asia, and then you kind of suddenly come back here, and things are completely 180 degrees different, and it's much more a struggle for something that may or may not work. But I think what really kept us going was we completely were blinded to the possibility that it's not going to work. We were so in love and so much I had so much passion for building this, and just seeing this tiny results every day. You do this is the outcome. You do this is the outcome. Was so intriguing that the rest just didn't matter and kept us going.
But it was still in like one room flat in Vienna, living with three guys from Slovakia.
Yeah,
Are they all
of them
from
were
Slovakia?
Slovakia.
Well, what was the toughest part on that? Was it the bathroom schedule? What was the hardest part
The hardest
on the downgrade?
was it was very cold.
It was very cold.
And we couldn't afford to turn on the heaters. And you couldn't the shower schedule was difficult, so you had to always like know in advance, like turn on the heater for how long before jumping into the shower, so you had it. And I was actually trying to go to the gym and take the shower.
And were there ever a point at this, because this sounds difficult, and the downgrade of living in kind of paradise in Malaysia, moving to this one room flat with three co-founders, were there ever a moment of weakness where you would say, okay, well, screw this, I'm coming home, or back to Malaysia, I'm coming somewhere where it's warm, beach, my own apartment with my own shower?
Yeah, I mean, tensions were certainly high. between us back
Yeah.
then in one room. As you can imagine, you'd already have so much pressure. And yeah, I had that moment. I actually left for a month, and I went to
Hmm.
live with my friend in Madrid and work from there. So yeah, it was certainly difficult times among the four of us to just try to get along perfectly well under all those circumstances, on all that pressure. And I also feel, because the other two co-founders, that was their home, and they were used to that
Hmm.
lifestyle, and they were already studying there, so it was very much easier for them to
Yeah.
understand what's going on, rather for me that I had to adapt. And it's, with all the tension and pressure building up, I just decided that it's maybe best for everyone that we give it a bit of separation until things can, we understand how the future will look like after fundraising.
And yeah, and then really manage the shower schedule. I really, really appreciate how you openly talk about stuff that didn't go the all sunny way. And one of them was we already discussed fundraising and how that was crucial for you guys so you can keep going on. But at the same time, you told me that you gave up at the beginning too big of a percentage.
Mhm.
And what problems did it create along the way?
To give up the percentage.
Yes.
Um, Luckily, we have our cap table is formed in a way and structured also together with our agreement with shareholders that is not creating so much strategic
Mm-hmm.
problems actually. So I would say the only shame or problem is that after all these years, we still would like to continue building Eyrim, but we gave up so much in the beginning that it's just, a pity. But there are always ways that you can, earn back shares. But in terms of like shareholder dynamics or cap table dynamics, luckily we had a really good shareholder agreement in
Mm-hmm.
place, where also our shareholders were quite friendly towards this notion that since we have so much little share, so let's make the founders happy in other ways so that they're not losing more control, at least on the strategic or decision making side of
And
things.
who did the paperwork? Because there are so many. You were both. You were all first-time
Mm-hmm.
founders. So how did that happen? Did you have some friend lawyer helping you, or how did that happen that you get such a good paperwork done so early in the business?
Yeah. So again, thanks to this whole idea that you have to fundraise with like a VC or a private
Mm-hmm.
equity fund, you have to go through a very structured process of working with reputable lawyers and people in the industry, which typically we on ourselves, if we were working with some angel investors, we would not have invested that much money
Mm-hmm.
and effort to create such a document. But this was kind of a requirement, and we had to work with really good reputable lawyers. But I think the most important thing is that on our side also I put so much emphasis on really making sure that I'm reading this and I'm discussing it with the lawyer, and I make sure that this is something that it could make sense to us as founders considering the shareholding that we have. And every time when I'm also discussing with friends or other founders, I always emphasize that right now, yeah, things are great. You're happy, like things are making sense based on handshake, but always have the document in
Mm-hmm.
place because you never know in the future what might happen. And it did happen to
It
us
did happen.
several times.
And can you follow up on that? Can you tell us what happened and where good paperwork saved you?
Um, yes, I can. um, so it kind of goes hand in hand with the performance of the company as well. So
Mm-hmm.
we immediately secured the seed round in the beginning. The year after, we followed it up with another round and another round. And the fundraising was taking so long, and the negotiations were taking so long that by the time we were closing the round, the company was kind of already
Already,
in
yeah.
so much debt that instead of using the proceeds to realize the growth that we promised the investor, we actually had to pay off the debt.
Mm-hmm.
And other dynamics as well, perhaps we'll talk about it. So this naturally created some tension between us and our shareholders, that it was just not everyone was really happy with this, the future and how things were shaping up and going. And you know, in the worst times of Eyrim, when we were really in debt and the EBITDA was really really red, we had difficult
Mhm.
discussions with our shareholders. But thanks to this contracts that we put in place, we managed to
Mhm.
still secure our place and, you know, keep the company running with us and not let outsiders to come and, you know, take it away from us.
Were there some who were like calling for bankruptcy or for sale of the company?
And it wasn't really serious. Mostly they wanted kind of the change on the executives and
Oh, right.
management and the
Okay,
team,
okay.
which we definitely didn't want to
Hmm.
let go. So thanks to that, we managed to kind of have a higher say, or
Hmm.
use our votes to, you know, outvote the rest. But it certainly did really, really help. But also, you know, outside of shareholder dynamics, generally with anyone that we worked with, partners or our people, it's also great for them.
Yeah.
It's just really important to
And it,
invest that money with your law firm or your law counsel and make sure things are just written down and agreed.
yeah, definitely. And in the time of crisis, there are arguments, and it makes sense that
Always.
people have different
Yeah.
approach. But you, even though that you stick to the management roles, you said that there were some things that you could have done better, and that it was because both of you and Martin, were focusing on fundraising so much.
Yeah.
Maybe because of the reason you said that the debt piled up and you had to fundraise all the time to pay the debts.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. But who run the company back then?
Yeah. That's exactly the trouble. That you know, it was from the first moment we learned, okay, you fundraise, you continue building, you fundraise again, and you continue building. So we were kind of used to this, you
Hmm.
know, setup. And even in the good times, instead of really focusing on optimizing and building the business, we were just kind of fundraising to, you know, grow the team and grow the numbers and pour the money into marketing, because that's also what we were used to from, you know, Malaysia times, because we came
Hmm.
from this era, or this community of people that they came from the Western Europe or America, and this rocket internet, it's a,
Hmm.
you know, $1 billion on the stock market, that they were copying the workable
Yeah.
solutions or ideas from America. They came to other parts of the world and
And it worked
replicated,
for
and
them.
it worked really for
Yeah.
them. But what was really important was they were pouring millions into those ideas, especially in the marketing. And it was just use the marketing money and, you know, bombard the performance marketing on Google and make sure you can capture the market share within a couple of months, and then you're just the go-to person for that particular idea. And if it doesn't work, it's okay, we'll just start something else. So
With a little blackmail, like what will we do if the other company like Airbnb doesn't buy us, right?
yeah,
Um,
but of course we came from this
yes,
school,
of course.
and we didn't have this you know, big capital that would protect us, that
Hmm.
okay, if not this then that. So this is just genuinely what we were used to.
Hmm.
And this was also what really was the talk of the town when you listened to, you know, podcasts, VCs in Silicon
Yeah,
Valley, and the
everything is
books.
marketing.
Yeah, everything is just like, just grab so much money on the VC side and just pour it into marketing
Hmm.
and grow, and the EBITDA doesn't matter. You're
Hmm.
just sacrificing that for the growth and for the market share. And I feel that these days the talks and the focus has shifted so much,
Hmm.
because people realize that that solution was really not sustainable, and you really have to actually build a sustainable, profitable, optimized company. So again, learning by doing, that's what we did, that's
And
what we
so,
were used
at
to.
what point did you find out that EBITDA does matter? What was the situation?
So, you know, throughout all these years, what we actually had at least was that we were growing double digit numbers
Hmm.
quite nicely. So that was our winning card. That if nothing else, the company is growing so much, there is so much demand, and the future of this industry is bright. But then COVID came, and majority of our business was still the sunglasses or reselling frames. Mostly the optician business was not that professional, minuscule. So suddenly the business really went in decline, which was, you know, surprising for e-commerce, because e-commerce during COVID was like the talk of the
Yeah, but
town.
you can't flash your new Pradas
Exactly.
in your sweatpants. By the way, I gotta ask, it's a very out of box question, but I can't imagine you in sweatpants. Did you wear during COVID like proper COVID outfit? Didn't wash your hair for a week in your sweatpants? Have you been the true COVID
Even
girl?
outside of COVID, yeah, I do that.
Really, really,
We all need our comfort moments.
I will believe when I see it, because every picture I've seen of you, as stylish as it gets, back to the back to the COVID business crisis. So you couldn't flash new sunnies, so the sales drop.
Yeah.
And at that point, you realized that you were focusing too much on marketing and too much on fundraising, and then there are problems in the company. So, what was the solution?
Yeah, so throughout all those years, we always had this idea that this will always be the solution, that you have to double down on the optician business. You have to make your own lens lab and you have to grow that side. But it was so challenging, and just growing so much on the sunglasses business, we just kept, parking it away. And next year, we will think of it next year. But
Okay.
so when COVID came, it kind of put us in the in a situation where we just had to make it happen, even though it was very difficult. We were again in debts, company not growing as um, many were doing. There were so many layoffs around, which we didn't lay off anyone in the company at the time. But it was very, very difficult. But we doubled down and we put all the earnings that we had into making our lens lab, into launching our own private label, and into launching the optician business properly. And soon after,
Like the
also,
prescription eyewear.
yeah, prescription with the lenses. And on top of that, also secured to open our first showroom in Bratislava, which was something that we never wanted to do. We never wanted to go to the offline. We always thought the future is online. But we did all of these things, and a year and a half later, suddenly the business was not only growing, but we also made profits, which really helped.
Two questions on that. How did you manage not to fire anyone? I know that you cut the salaries, your own and of the employees. I think all up to 20%.
Yeah.
Right. How did they take it?
Yeah, so we are extremely transparent in Eyrim. We every month we show everything from top to bottom. We talk about everything.
Transparency, good for eyewear.
Yes. So we were also transparent about this topic, that we definitely don't want to let people go. This is the situation. See it for yourself. We're not hiding anything. And the best way to go in order to keep everyone still in the company while we fix.
How many people was that?
We were around 60 people at the time. Yeah, and we also offered them, like, this is the plan, this is how we need to get out of this situation, but we also don't want to let anyone go, because that's just not really that's not sustainable. It's not good for what we are trying to build. So what we should do is we will drop our salaries as C-level and executives by almost 30-40%, and with the rest of the team it will be half of that. And of course, like, everyone's not really happy about that in the beginning, but over time they appreciated it. And they see, like, how many people lost jobs on the market, and still they managed to stay with Eyrim, and Eyrim actually flourished, and we got back on track, and everyone actually is happier than before. So that's the way that we did it. We didn't fire anyone at the time.
And how did the investor take it when you informed them about the pivot to the prescription glasses? Were they, like, cheering, or were they, like, very critical of the idea?
Both. Yeah, both. I mean, we have an interesting cap table with our investors with different, mentalities and mindsets and approaches towards new ideas. And it was a very mix of messaging, like how we should go around it. But if we wanted to secure everything and give them all the answers, I think to this date we would still be discussing it. So whilst we were, kind of, just warming them up and discussing that, we knew that this is what we have to do. So we were in parallel already working on those things. And by the time it was launched and it was ready, and they also saw the benefit of that, and now they're more actually cheering. And encouraging us to do more of our shops.
Um, Apart from transparency, you also say that you have in Eyrim very flat hierarchy,
Hmm.
and that like you try everybody to be the CEO of their domain,
Hmm.
which sounds very nice. But how does that work in the practice?
Yeah.
How that works in practice? Like, there are a lot of ideas which sound nice. Like, we're gonna be friends. Everybody will we all be equal. But that, to go back to Orwell, then it had like, turned out to be the animal farm. So
Yeah.
how did you manage to be this almost utopian? Everybody is a CEO.
Yeah, yeah, it goes really back actually to that, because as I said, when we met Martin, for us this freedom, but at the same time really appreciating that you have the freedom and not take it for granted, was the pillar of creating Eyerim. And this is the culture that we have in Eyerim and we foster with everyone. um, and over time, of course, there is a lot of trial and error and there is so much mistake that can happen. But if I compare it to companies that you may have like a proper authoritarian system where everyone is just
Mm-hmm.
task based and you have to do what I say and this is what you do, over time it just kills creativity and innovation, but maybe it mitigates risks. But when I think about it in Eyerim, okay, maybe in the beginning we make more risks, but at least it keeps the creativity and the
Mm-hmm.
innovation and the hype and the motivation alive. And you learn from those mistakes, so you don't repeat them and you do it better. And eventually, I think the benefits with what people on their own can actually deliver to the company, if you just let them be free, really outweighs the long process of just being task based, killing the creativity, and just following a single process.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned from top to bottom that it kills creativity if you manage like that.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of some idea or any creative thing that happened from the bottom to top, like that when the employees have such a freedom, they utilize it?
Yeah. There is, so like the latest examples I can think of is certainly a lot of cool new tech that we are trying to
Mm-hmm.
build with AI and personalize the shopping experience, which is not out there, but it definitely came, from the bottom. And in many cases, it's not this like grand idea that will change the business. It's mostly about in your domain, what is the best solution to do it differently or do it better, or find new partners and bring new concepts and ideas. But honestly, I would also say that our entire private label is
Mm-hmm.
from the bottom. Like
Oh,
the
really?
concept, the branding, the naming, the whole thing around the private label model is also from the bottom. And all the tools and the systems that we're building from the Lens Lab, it's quite technically heavy. So we had to be more agile and innovative around the way that how we actually do our Lens Lab for an e-commerce
Mm-hmm.
business, and not just a manufacturing plant for like a lens business. So a lot of people actually came up with different innovative solutions around that, how to create the whole process there.
And how does the co-CEO role works out? Because everybody sometimes fight in the business. You also mentioned that it can create something good, that it's normal, that happens. You always need to find the way out. But when you with your co-CEO, Martin, if you have a really strictly different opinion about something, what is the approach then?
It rarely actually happened that we were in this situation. Um, we had very difficult opinion about certain things, but the good thing in Eyerim is that we always prioritize the good ideas over who says what, and we also we know exactly where Eyerim needs to go. as a next step.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very clear to us that this is the long-term plan for Eyerim, and we have to get
Mm-hmm.
there. So it's also easy to kind of filter out all the things, all the noise around it. If we have a dispute between us or anyone in the team, we all just like refer back to this line that we have to get back on track. So with Martin, it always just been with through logical discussions that we arrive to a solution. But again, it really rarely happens that we are having such a difficult
Mm-hmm.
dispute among us. It's usually what happens is if someone has an idea actually and wants to do something, just having this kind of discussion with the other person elevates it to even higher and better levels, rather than trying to solve a problem that we don't agree on something.
Mm-hmm. You already shortly mentioned the technology and the innovation that very often comes from the bottom. I would have a question because a lot of those things that Eyrim utilized were already there. I mean, of course, marketplaces, internet, then also image recognition, and also the augmented reality. Why? Right? So why did Eyrim like kind of won in the region? Why nobody else took this opportunity?
I think it's very much connected to this earlier conversation we had a little bit
Mm-hmm.
about how we manifest ourselves as a
Mm-hmm.
brand. And it's not just a place where you buy glasses and sunglasses, but it's a place where we are trying to kind of promote Eyrim as we are your friend who is trying to help you to buy the best eyewear that suits you. And I think the brand kind of portrays itself, and that's how our customers also feel. And it's very much tangible if you walk into our store, just the way, how you feel, how you interact with the brand, how we interact with you. The activities that we're also involved with is just not tailored only towards eyewear. We try to also work
Mm-hmm.
with other artists and sponsor them, or some musicians and so on. So it's more than just being an eyewear brand, but it's
Mm-hmm.
about, it has more soul and life to it. And I think in this day and age, people are more attracted to interacting with a brand that has more life or more to say than just taking their money and giving them something in return.
There was a trend a few years ago when we thought, yes, people do have this really strong relationship with the brand because of the soul, because of the quality, durability, etc. And then we were kind of laughing at the companies like Wish and Alibaba.
Mm-hmm.
But now, when these kind of companies became way smarter, utilize the technology like AI
Mm-hmm.
and making it extremely affordable, like Timu or the other company I can never pronounce correctly.
Sheen, yeah, Sheen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you take this and then, you know, even though we can talk about some sustainable trends and soul brand connection, yet the numbers say that the sales of these companies, even from this region, are growing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take that this kind of new very consumerist approach, do you take that as a threat, or do you consider that as, well, something that comes and goes?
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna
Yeah.
say this, that
Sorry.
yeah, but yeah, you described it well. It's we don't see it so much that is affecting us so much,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, if you're really focusing mostly on the optician side of things,
Mm-hmm.
it's at the end a medical thing, and people would like to still go to the doctor, get the eyes measured,
Mm-hmm.
have somewhere where they can try it and be able to return it. And I don't think they will just easily give in to Temu and Shein or whoever for such low prices. But even if it affects us in some way, I think these trends, we've seen it for the past decades. These Chinese companies, they're usually coming and
Mm-hmm.
going and exploiting the customers, and until something else comes up. So for us, what we also see in Eyrim is what's worked, and what is our biggest strength is being adaptable and flexible, and um, kind of flowing with the trends and the changes in the market, and not giving up. And you
Mm-hmm.
just stick with your customer that way, and people will, we see it all the time. When someone really comes to Eyrim, they come to Eyrim again. And We're trying to really create this love brand, which we had many cases that this was proven to us time and time again, that it seems we're really getting there.
Mhm.
And in our core markets, really, people who interact with Eyrim, they really stay with Eyrim. And it's better than like a buzz with Temu that's you just exploit the customer with very low margins and try to increase your revenue at any cost, and then just change the business. This is not what we're trying to do, and we really want to be in it for the long term and really bringing value to the customers in different generations, and they stick with us.
You said about that word, that word, utilizing AI and embracing innovation. And there were some innovation in the eyewear. You remember, how was that called? Google Lens.
Oh,
That
the
was,
Google
yeah,
Glasses.
yeah, Google Glass. Now, Meta with
Yeah,
Ray-Ban. I hope it's Ray-Ban.
yeah, it is.
Way nicer looking.
Mhm.
Where do you think that this trend goes? Will we have in few years, like, tech implemented in our eyewear doing this?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it certainly will. Of course, Europe is usually like later in adapting to these trends. So this
Mm-hmm.
Ray-Ban Meta, for example, is actually not available still in our markets. But talking to other, friends and acquaintances in the same industry in other countries, they definitely see that this is the way to go in the future. That smart glasses will have a significant
Mm-hmm.
chance and significant proportion in,
Is
in,
that
in the
idea
industry.
you're embracing, you're already thinking about, or is that like so far too far-fetched?
It's not, let's say, our main agenda on the
Yeah, sure.
table, but when the time comes, as always, we definitely want to be the first to get our hands and be the pioneers.
Yeah, maybe with smart glasses I could do this and remember the word utilize. Um, you already touched the subject about Europe might making it slightly more difficult to founders or adapting some trend later on, some early, but some later. And you and Martin also are very open in your interviews of your, not I would say over criticism, but I would say skepticism
Mm-hmm.
about the government,
Yeah.
about the state. And I would like to ask you how it is to grow a company, to build something from scratch in a state with the government that you don't trust in.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's quite a topic these days, especially in Slovakia. But and I feel Martin has a stronger opinion
Mm-hmm.
about it since he's also Slovak himself. But for me per se, I absolutely don't believe in any government. I
Mm-hmm.
never vote, and I will never vote. And coming also from Iran, seeing the political situation there, it's just for me a waste of time to try as one person to navigate around that or
Mm-hmm.
change things, but rather focus on your own immediate surroundings and what you can impact and what you can affect. Because also when I think about it, like years ago, nothing was ever positive on news about politics,
Mm-hmm.
and now maybe it's kind of more immediate on our lives because we have more to lose, so we are hearing just the news a bit more, and it's kind of more impactful. But just governments come and go every 4 years,
That is true.
things change all the time,
I don't know
and you
if they
cannot.
come and goes in Iran every 4 years, but in Slovakia, yeah.
Yeah, so you cannot build around that all the time and just change the course because something in politics is changing. Of course, if you find a good opportunity that impacts your business and
That
cost
will
wise
be
it
my
makes
follow
sense.
up. Like, I completely respect that, and I'm just gonna do an unfair question. To be honest, if you had one party that would, make it easy for your business with maybe a very open market capitalistic approach, and the other one would be like, we're gonna tax 50%, we're gonna introduce some draconian laws on the immigrants, etc., which is not too far-fetched now in Europe, would that make you to go vote or still no vote for you?
No, no vote for me, because even if they want to make these changes, it takes a very long time
Mm-hmm.
until the real impact is felt. Like what we see also in the US. Like they already did it in the 70s during Nixon, they're doing it
Mm-hmm.
now, and it really took decades until the impact from the 70s was
Mm-hmm.
fully implemented. So I just, for me, these are just words. And
Mm-hmm.
by the time that you want to do something about it and be involved in it, rather, it's like a fundraising, like instead of focusing so much on fundraising, focus on building your own
Mm-hmm.
business and having an impact on your immediate surrounding, then hoping, someone from the outside will help you with something on your
So
business.
always focus on the things that you can
Yeah.
change and you can create or build in your
Yeah.
surroundings.
That's how I would go in life.
And focusing on the specifics, for one more question, what is the weirdest food you've ever eaten?
I was actually thinking about that, and like it it's weird for me, but quite common, when I go there to talk to people there. But I really don't like eating insects, and I had a hard time
Mhm.
eating locusts and grasshoppers in Mexico, but it was very, very common. So I really
You
hope.
never eat them in Malaysia?
No, I
Mhm.
try to avoid them, and I hope there is no time coming in human future, the future of the human times, that we have to be forced to eat insects instead of meat. But the weirdest food, honestly, that I ate, I think it was a jellyfish in Malaysia. In terms of just the texture,
Yes,
slimy,
slimy.
slightly chewy, and just does nothing for you. So, yeah, not recommended.
Not recommend that either. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank
Yassaman
you.
Omidbakhsh, someone who doesn't believe in the future of insect protein because she wouldn't eat that. Thank you so much for being with
Thank
us
you so
today.
much. It was so much fun.